We have both lower income taxes and record budget surpluses. And all across the globe, the biggest companies are looking at Kentucky, looking at what we have to offer and choosing to bring investments here. And our homegrown businesses are expanding like never before. You know, it wasn't by accident we became the electric vehicle battery production capital of the United States of America. It came to be by talking us up, showing what we have to offer, touting our workforce and the vibrancy of our people. But everybody on the other side, everybody else who's running for this office has been doing the opposite. Right now, somewhere in America, there is a CEO deciding where to move their business, and they're considering Kentucky. Let me ask you, is seeing people talk down our state and our economy, insult our people, and stoke divisions going to help that next company choose Kentucky? No, of course not. But we know Kentuckians are tough, kind, hardworking people. Of course companies should want to move here. This is the best workforce in the United States of America.
So that's what we're going to hear from Governor Andy Beshear, right? Economic wins, 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 wins. All he does is win, win, win.
Yeah, every day there's an economic development announcement. And, you know, off camera, Al made the comment when he was bragging about the surplus, and isn't that the legislature's budget? Which actually, this current budget is absolutely the legislature's budget. But when you're the governor, you claim things like that. That's just the reality. If there's a Republican governor.
Yeah, and he signed on to one phase of the tax decrease.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably so he could help claim credit for it.
Yeah,
Right,
but he did.
right.
He vetoed
After he vetoed the first one of House Bill 801,
Right.
the
Yeah, he
the
vetoed
original
the
tax
first
cut proposal. Yeah.
And the excuse he gave, to be fair, was inflation.
Right, but she's kind of imperative, right? Like,
Period.
I'm gonna,
Right.
not give you more of your money to spend on the inflated prices from the Biden.
So is that going to be enough? Just talk about the economy that you didn't help build alone.
No, not enough. I mean, I think he's going to. I think he'll. So one of the things he's been dealt a tough hand with the big tragedies, right? COVID, the flooding, and the tornadoes, and it's allowed him to be a unifying force in the governor. And obviously, we talked a little bit earlier about one of the challenges for the Republicans is to minimize that record, but it's allowed him to step above. And you look at a state where a governor of one party governs successfully and then gets reelected. A state that's the opposite kind of politics. So think Maryland and Massachusetts until this last election. Think Louisiana right now. They've been able to win and reelected because you think if voters go to the poll think, I'm going to vote for Democrat Andy Beshear. He doesn't want that. He wants them to go into the polls and vote for Governor Andy Beshear because if they're trying to decide between Democratic candidate Democratic Governor Andy Beshear and Republican Daniel Cameron, Cameron's going to do better in that comparison.
Yeah, I think generic Republican is several points ahead of generic Democrat, and that's really what the Republicans are shooting for this fall in this top of the ticket. Now, what Beshear's been able to do, as Trey said, is shed his party label. He wants everybody to believe he's a nonpartisan technocrat who hands out hugs and cases of water when something bad happens. And what the Republican Party has to do is find the issues that remind people that he's just like every other liberal Democrat you've come to dislike or distrust. And I have no doubt that that campaign is going to be waged. It's never been waged before. Remember, he got elected in 2019, and the race was really all about Matt Bevin and how virtually nobody liked him. And that was the race. In this race, Cameron, very likable guy, the rest of the ticket, perfectly fine. And so we're actually going to have a debate on issues. Some of it's going to be the economy, but I have a suspicion some of it's going to be about values. And some of the things he's vetoed and some of the statements he's made on cultural issues where he is way outside the mainstream of the rest of the state. And I think the Republicans are finally going to get their shot at a clean race. With Bevin, they never had it because no one could ever get over the hump of just, he almost lost his own primary in 2019 to a guy who later got pinched for he's in jail. And so we have a totally different dynamic. The state's gotten redder. The voter registration has flowed. Cameron's showing momentum. And I think this issue debate that we didn't have in 19 is finally going to be had.
Morgan Hayes, what do you think about that? The fact that the governor is wanting to say, I'm Governor Andy Beshear, not Democratic Governor Andy Beshear.
He is Governor Andy Beshear. He's a governor for all Kentuckians, not just Democrats. He's shown that he can put aside his own political ambitions and get up and talk very honestly, very openly to every Kentuckian, and make the decisions that are right, not left or right, but that are right and literally about life and death. I think given that, most people would never want to be in that position. Monday morning quarterbacking is a very real thing. For someone to attack what he did, especially during COVID, is quite frankly weak-minded and weak-backboned. I think also to say that he's a crazy liberal is not accurate.
Well, we do the culture wars that we know will be a part of this campaign going forward, because we do know that, of course, he vetoed the sweeping anti-trans measures in Bill 150, of course, the transgender sports measure before that, the session before. So that issue alone is going to be something that he's going to have to contend with.
Correct, but it's an issue that really, based on data, doesn't affect that many Kentuckians. It's a hot topic, but it's not something that people are feeling in their own backyard. And it's something that is not a creative issue, because I'm a multi-state lobbyist and I see it in every single one of my states. If they want to attack him on the issues, they need to be creative and find something that he's actually said or done, not something that wins in every other state.
The issue is the linkage to Beshear to the National Democratic Party. Because what he has, I think, successfully done is try to separate himself from all the other National Democrats that Kentuckians have come to reject. But he has taken positions that are as liberal or more liberal than most of the National Democrats here that are out of favor in Kentucky. And that's really never been, that's the purpose of the campaign. And so the issues may not affect every single person, but in a nationalized environment, which we currently live in, and you're looking for benchmarks, right? Well, who is this person like, and who do they identify with? To identify with those issues is to identify with the more liberal elements of his party, and Cameron basically identifies as, I think he's going to be thought of as a pretty mainstream Republican in this state. And so, again, I just go back to the set. If you can get this thing to generic Republican and generic Democrat, the Republicans have a chance.
And there's a reason why.
The first week of November. He could be indicted. It's just
But
problematic.
that doesn't seem to affect his popularity in
The
Kentucky, does
chief
it?
law enforcement officer of the state to be supported by somebody who has been found by a jury to be a sexual abuser, found by a jury to be running a criminal enterprise.
Oh, Albert,
and is still
give me a break.
For
Goodness gracious.
White House documents on January 6th. There's just a lot of an X factor out there.
But he's still polling very well, though, in Kentucky,
Well,
right?
sure he is among people who, and this is a Trump state.
Among voters in Kentucky who support. He polls well because he's popular in Kentucky. I'm not a big Trump guy, but the reality is he does poll. I also think one of the things that struck me was when the Beshear campaign, I don't know if it was in the governor's, when he became governor, started the campaign, ripped off the 2003 Republican team in Kentucky. We 20 years ago, this was the total reverse. We didn't want to be known as the Republicans. We wanted to be, when we were running in 2003. And so if you called Republican Party headquarters to Kentucky, answer the phone, instead of RPK, they'd say Team Kentucky. We literally used that in 2003. It was on the. We never said we were Republicans because we were the minority party. And we didn't want to.
Unfortunately, you're not Republicans, you're not conservative, you're liberals.
Well, now
And that's the problem right there with Kentucky Education Association and KET. It's liberals. And you look around there in the audience, and of all your commentators, they're all liberals, including Trey, unfortunately.
Retired. Those voters
who I love, but he's liberal.
Elected a lot of them to the legislature. Beat Angie Hatton in that race, and almost beat the final remaining state rep last year up in
Ashley
County in Floyd County. So sweeping all those races, will those folks come back to Republican or will they stick with Beshear? But similarly, if you play the values card, you run your risk in the suburbs of Louisville, Lexington, Northern Kentucky, of maybe losing some votes as a Republican as those areas have become the battleground. And that's where I think earlier we talked a little bit about the national campaign aspects of this race. That's one of the things that's fascinating is our suburban areas, which is a lot of where Bevin lost the race in 2019. Those are the swing voters in the presidential race. That's in Pennsylvania. That's where Biden won, was the suburbs of Philadelphia and the suburbs of Pittsburgh. Can Cameron recapture some of those votes, recapture get those Eastern Kentucky folks back, and can he do both? And if he does, he can win.
Yeah. Morgan, were you going to say something?
And I think he will win.
Well, to Al's point about
Daniel Cameron,
General Cameron
a
seeming
whole
to
lot
be
better than
Trump's guy,
Andy Beshear.
to all the reasons about why